You're there. Welcome back to There's a Will. It's the show that I love because it's got my name in it. And you would like it probably too if your name was in it. But I hope you like it anyway. And I hope this time we will be moderately, I'll just throw my pen top around. When you make a mistake like that, you're supposed to acknowledge it. Otherwise, people go, he's on television, he's nervous or something like that. Okay. So if you make a mistake, you're supposed to say immediately, oh, I didn't know. And put it back on there.
So for authenticity.
Authenticity is everything. Naturalness.
Yes, indeed.
Naturalness. I haven't bathed this week in order to be very natural.
That's why I'm sitting at this end of the table. Yes.
And Phillips gets a lucky seat this time. So I'm here with a fine group of gentlemen, if I do say so myself, and I did. This is Philip Evison, Guy PINSENT, and the inimitable and sartorially prepared.
Thank you so much.
Nikki, cousin Nikki Richardson.
I couldn't let your viewers down.
Cousin Nikki, but very far back. No relation, folks, no relation. Wish I could claim it.
I'd like to emphasize that.
Much as I'd like to, I cannot. Probably closer related to EVISON here. You know, it's one of those...
Your Scottish university roots.
Yeah, one of those things. You know, the old...
and what a fine university it is, I have to admit.
A fine university. University of St. Andrews, I believe this is where one of the future king went.
Indeed.
And I don't think Cambridge can say that.
Actually, Cambridge can say that.
Once upon a time.
Prince Charles.
Sorry, Prince Charles.
Went to
Give me that back.
Prince Charles would have
So the first in line to the throne.
If anybody says anything I don't like today,
you get the pen.
I will flick the pen top at, not you, cousin Nikki.
Thank you so much.
I know you're on my side, as a good sidekick must be, even if not related. Sorry to bring it up again.
That's okay.
I'm glad you did. Keep that clear. My mother was a little upset, and she watched one of the shows. She said, "Who is this interloper?" I said, "I have no idea, but he's a good man." So, gentlemen, in our last show,
Couple of days ago.
Oddchinnick. Is that Oddchinnick? That's an episode.
Yes, that's an episode.
Yeah, Nikki knows these things. Probably Philip does too. Probably, you all know Polish better than I do.
Yeah.
I'm not going to even pretend to be a scholar of such eminence as the group gathered here.
Well, Philip is half Polish.
This studio can hardly contain the gray matter here displayed. But it'll have to do its best because it's all we've got. There's a lot going on. This recently, as we know, we said that last time, didn't we, Philip? Guy? And you guys got a little bit at loggerheads, a word that still have no idea what it means, but I like the sound of it. And the biggest thing that's happened, well, first, they want to throw peaches at the president, which I think is a little weird. I thought the old days of putting somebody in the thing and throwing the rotten fruit at him was over. But apparently they want to do that again.
Impeach
They
him.
want to peach. What? Peach the president, I thought it was.
Impeach.
To peach him?
Impeach him. Yeah, maybe it's the similar route to peach.
Really? Because they put him in the thing?
Well, if I do recall, you do come from Georgia, the peach state, so maybe
that's right. I thought we could get...
That's what you do, basically, I guess, in the South.
We peach people down
south.
That's right. We peach people in the South. But I don't think it's fair they should do that to the president of the august majesty, of which he always compliments with his behavior.
Of course.
Always.
Well,
He's like Norman Mailer on a bad drunk.
Well,
Norman Mailer's he used to be a famous writer. He's dead.
You have an election year coming up, and the House is controlled by the Democrats. So, any possible way the Democrats can obviously chip at any popularity at the sitting president, it's going to be an interesting next few months, that's for sure.
So Philip goes with the rotten fruit gambit. I'm not sure that I agree, but I'm willing to be open-minded on it. And if the president must be peached or even watermeloned, no racial inference there, it's okay with me. Yeah, I will go with what the people say. If they want to raisin him.
Yes, I think it will be water off a duck's back.
You think so?
His core
off
support.
The duck tail?
Yes, exactly.
I can talk.
Off there.
Yeah.
Yeah, your hair's sort
it's getting longer, isn't
it?
It's
getting
longer.
Trumpish.
I'm not going full Trump.
You're sort of Bryan Adams towards Trump now.
Bryan Adams, summer of '69, come Trump.
With your Robin Day glasses.
Thank you very much. That's what I asked for exactly with my Robin Day. I said,
Robin Day glasses.
I want this. That's when I went to my what do you call it? A Berber?
Berber?
Your barber.
Berber? A barber. That's right. Yeah. No, this fellow was from North Africa.
Okay.
We'll get to that.
Ah, yes.
We'll get to
So it was
the
a Berber.
invasion, and this is something I object to: the invasion of Europe by North African Berbers, cutting people's hair. I think there's way, way too much of that, and that's something we'll also get to the bottom of. But I think there's a couple of good things. The election, of course, coming up in the UK. We had an election in Poland, which a lot of people looked at very closely. You know, the second coming of Il Duce. There was a lot of the reading was this guy's like Mussolini, only worse.
I think you're referring to Orban in Hungary
I
rather
don't know.
than in
They're all,
Poland.
they all say that all about all of them. But you know, last time I saw, I checked, no invasion of Ethiopia by Hungary, so we're safe.
Not so far, no. That's quite interesting. The telltale absence of the invasion of a nearby North African state.
Yeah,
By these anti-democratic
maybe do something about
forces
those
from Central
Berbers
Europe. Yeah,
that are
exactly.
invading our barber shops.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I would think. Anyway, the other thing is, I'm dazzled by your
Pocket handkerchief.
yes, that's what I call them.
Yes, so do I. Other people use other names, but I think pocket handkerchief is the best.
I know, and the color coordination. You should switch pocket handkerchiefs
Yeah?
with Guy, because his it's a little limey. No pun intended, but it should fit in your pocket, and the yellow one would fit in his
but
pocket.
you see, we can't possibly take fashion advice from an American.
From an
That's a very good point.
even
Because American men,
Ralph Lauren
American,
and Tommy Hilfiger.
Ralph Lauren is just copying British stuff. He's not actually
Yeah, it's just-
adding
that
any
is
original
true.
thought.
That is true. I didn't want to go off on all that Sartor stuff. I
No,
just
no,
wanted
but
to make a
well, thank
remark
you,
on your
thank you so
nattiness.
much. That's very
You're
kind.
natty as usual.
I'm sure my focus group would be thrilled.
Wow. I didn't know you had the focus group all ready to go.
Yeah.
Pretty soon you'll all have your focus groups, and
Groupies.
I'll still be out of focus. But the other thing is that I think we should talk about, apart from peaching or fruiting the president, I prefer to call it fruiting the president.
Yes, well, that conjures up a
Don't
number.
start. Don't
Yeah,
start.
right.
You
He
are the
started.
second banana around here, but don't,
Yeah,
another fruit reference.
another fruit reference, yeah.
Another fruit. The other thing was, which is not funny in any way, unless, well, I mean, I always think killing terrorists has an element of humor in it. But the recent
Demise
of, what's the fellow's name?
Baghdadi.
al-Baghdadi.
I knew you guys would be able to say that. I can't. I practiced, but I just.
And do you know how they
was
decided
afraid
to
to.
prove his identity?
What?
They had a mole in his inner compound that stole his underwear to prove his DNA.
What? I
For the
didn't-
special
I didn't know the guy was
forces.
a Mormon.
Well,
Yeah,
exactly.
Secret underwear.
Mormons always have a secret mole.
What?
So-
No, they have secret underwear. the Mormons.
He was found and
Which is not
decimated
funny.
by his underwear.
He was found by his. I didn't know that
Yeah,
salient fact. That is very interesting.
I
So
saw
he
the-
was
the press-
tracked by his underpants.
And the president declassified a photograph of a killer dog that hunted him down in his tunnel.
The dog hunted him
And,
down,
and so there's a hero special forces dog out there as well.
which was
in the
injured,
media.
apparently. But this fella ran. I heard he ran sniveling down a tunnel.
Yes,
He's a
wailing,
sniveler.
crying like a cowardly
Sniveling
dog,
and
like
weeping,
a baby.
like a spoilt child, like a red-headed stepson.
Good. You're firing on all cylinders today.
No, I heard that. Sorry, laughing.
Yeah, you should,
You
yeah.
tickled me when you said that. Firing on all cylinders.
Yes, yes.
But yeah, I wouldn't mind fire a few cylinders at this guy. No, I was in Iraq when these. I would like to say a dirty word, but I'm not allowed to since it's a family show. If you're the Addams family, but or the Manson family. Yeah, but I was in Iraq when they attacked Mosul. They came down the road there. I was at the airport there, working. And
When was that?
I was working as a caterer. No, I wasn't. This was 5 years ago, I believe, in the summer, wasn't it? Wasn't it June? I was just thinking about that of 2014, wasn't it? And I was just thinking, half a decade's gone by since then. It just seems like yesterday. And it took so long to get rid of them, you see, didn't it? I remember when they were coming down the road and you were just going, one was sitting there. Wasn't really many people to talk to. We had our crew, which was all Iraqis. And then there was a Polish guy, but not, an engineer, not really up on politics. So you're thinking, well, good Lord, where do I find a Kalashnikov when you need one, And the other thing is how am I going to get out of here? Are we next at the airport? Because Mosul is the next biggest town, right? And it was so well defended. So, gosh, are we that well defended? Well, yes and no. But one could see maneuvers taking place over the wall from the control tower, from the what do you call them? Insurgents? I don't know. Rebels and the. I don't know, rebels probably too good a word for them, but again, a dirty word comes to mind that I won't use, but bastards. But sorry, Nick. Nick looked at me questioning dirty bastards who were over out there. So we knew things were going on, of course, and there were some reports in the press, but nothing was done, and that was the thing, that you wondered why the president sat on his hands and did nothing, And I still don't understand why he did nothing. All you had to do was stop him. We had plenty of planes. We had, you didn't need troops, but we had plenty of planes. Could have bombed the heck out of that and prevented the fall of Mosul and all that death and destruction, not to mention all the loss of property into their hands.
I think it was fatigue. I think it was, if you considered that the United States and coalition forces entered Afghanistan basically in 2001, winter of, with their first drops of the CIA, with millions of dollars, and special forces basically riding to meet anti-Mujahideen forces on donkeys and horses until the actual invasion and the bombings commenced to the invasion of Iraq. It's been over a decade. The United States has been at war for over 14, 15 years, and I think it was fatigue at the time.
Since 2001 in Afghanistan.
Exactly, and I think
2002 anyway.
The public and the political classes were a bit in fatigue, but we have to also bear in mind that the world's media attention tends to be on, let's say, what goes on in Iraq and potentially in Afghanistan, but the United States and the French and the United Kingdom are actively involved in Africa and African operations that don't get as much press.
There's a lot going on. You're
built
right.
up heavily, huge forces in Djibouti to target and deal with issues relating to Somali piracy, which is not a big issue at the moment, to what's going on in the Yemen. Civil war as well,
absolutely,
and the Islamists there that are being targeted with the Saudis and the coalitions that they've set up, to obviously Boko Haram in Nigeria and all sorts of other groups that are found in Central Africa, which obviously is not too far away from having an effect on the North African states, which directly border the Mediterranean and Southern Europe. So. There's a lot of operations still going on around the world.
There's a lot of fleeing from those
Absolutely,
areas.
and I think one of the big issues that also is a result of what happens in Central Africa is, unfortunately, climate change, because there's been a lot of issues with crops being failing because of incredible heat waves that have occurred over the last decade, to obviously the issues of the civil wars that are occurring, etc., which has definitely helped in terms of pushing mass populations to drive north through the desert.
I understand what you mean, and it's a very good overview, but I still think President Obama could have said, get me some jets on that road right now, and let's defend the property rather than lose it and lives. And let's not leave it to the much criticized, not criticized, but underestimated Kurds recently, who have done an amazing job, amazing people. I mean, the greatest allies of Europe in the Middle East are Israel and the Kurds, surely. I mean, we do business with the Arabs. We can't trust them. They don't trust each other, right? I mean, yeah, that's the first thing I learned being there. They don't trust each other at all. Ask Your Man Lawrence of Arabia. That was a good book, wasn't it? Yeah.
Well, it's a tribal society.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the allegiance is to the tribe.
Yeah.
And then to, obviously the religious sect that they find themselves in. And I think many of the problems that we find today stem from the redrawing of the Ottoman Empire after the First World War and the consequences of putting together these states that have, to be honest, no real national integrity. They're an amalgamation of different religious sects and tribes, and unfortunately the result of the Iraqi invasion has been to bring this to the surface.
Absolutely.
And we see this in Iraq definitely.
Well, it's just an unmanageable place. It has been. I mean, even Faisal couldn't manage it, so, as we know from the... Watch the Lawrence of Arabia movie. We get a good Alec Guinness impression of Faisal, which probably wouldn't be allowed nowadays, but let's not go there. Let's keep it friendly and nice and above board. At any rate, this fellow was killed, and there has been a big hoo-ha about the president doing his, now, Robert De Niro impression with regard to the killing of this fellow. I'm waiting, by the way, for the next O'Reilly book, Killing Islam, Or has he already written it? He's written so many. O'Reilly is doing all these books, killing something.
Okay.
Are you familiar with this? It's an American thing. But, no, he's for like 10 books, killing something. Killing Islam will be next, if it hasn't already been done. He even did one called Killing the SS, which is a very bizarre title. So, the emphasis appears to be on the language the president has used to talk about this murderous so-and-so, SOB, etc., who thankfully is gone now. And everyone should be rejoicing, not booing the president at a baseball game. It's fine to boo the other team and players, but when your president has just announced to you the death of one of the greatest enemies of your country, I think you might, and he's accompanied by veterans and things, you might just stop the partisanship for a little while. And I mean, the same thing if it's Obama or whoever it is, except Hillary, of course. Just joking. She's a nice lady. We all know that. Any other comments, Nick? You got anything on that?
Well, no, I suppose some people just feel it's probably a little, given all the resources that the Americans had. Particularly, I think some people feel a little disturbed about the idea you just go around assassinating people of whom you no longer approve. I think that's what probably...
That's an interesting point.
I mean, we're supposed to be saying that we're better than these people, but if it's just, you might have hoped. And it was the same with the others who were killed in sort of rather unfortunate circumstances.
Do you really want to give this fellow, at a certain point, any more platform? I mean, he's killed enough people.
Well, maybe
even
not.
Killed his own
That's
children.
an interesting...
Ought to kill him for that.
Well, that's an interesting point, of course.
Yeah.
But I suspect that probably wasn't necessarily anti-Trump that some people...
He killed his own children.
Because
Honestly, just
the
like the
argument
lady who drove her car into the lake in North Carolina.
Because the argument then is, well, if we accept that you could kill people of whom you disapprove, there are enough nutcases to say, well, we disapprove of the American president, so why don't we have a go at killing him? And before you know it, the whole thing has spiraled out of control. Which is, I suspect, why most countries, even though and I think it was particularly clear in the United Kingdom at the time, the troubles in Northern Ireland, they could easily they knew who the trouble causers were on both sides. And if we lived in that sort of system, they could easily have gone around and made sure they didn't see the light of day again.
Well, they have.
Well, they did.
In certain cases. The
Well,
SAS
but
crossed over from Gibraltar,
in very rare
causing
cases.
great diplomatic rift of the Spanish.
My
very
favourite
famous
my
case.
favourite
What's
quote
that?
from that SAS operation in Gibraltar when
Who did they get?
they killed a bunch of IRA guys in
Oh,
Gibraltar.
back in the
day.
80s. Yeah, in the
And
80s,
there was they obviously had to have a proper investigation as to what had happened. And there was one question to one of the SAS soldiers was, why did you shoot him 13 times? And his answer was, that was how many rounds I had in my clip, sir.
Yeah, exactly. But they always make the mistake on these inquiries of asking the squatters who are actually following the orders.
Ask a silly question.
But they ask the guys who are actually there. They should be asking the people who give them the orders. I mean, the chap there with his gun facing whatever he's facing, he hasn't the time to think, should I fire 6 or 7 or 8 bullets? It happens a tiny flash as a reflex reaction. And yet there was that case in Northern Ireland once at a checkpoint, and they had an inquiry in the soldier. They concluded that his first 5 shots were valid, but shots 6 and 7 were somehow not valid. I mean, this is complete nonsense. And these people sit in these inquiries who have not had themselves to face.
This is when you have bureaucrats in charge
exactly.
of
don't face
what soldiers'
themselves.
behavior, and then the soldiers get killed.
Yeah.
Because I can tell you this, from my experience as a war correspondent, my experience, as you just mentioned, in Baghdad during that occasion, it's not the only occasion I've been in a situation like that, although that's an extraordinary one. The people who are safe back in their desks aren't thinking about you. Honestly, they're not. They don't care. They're thinking about where their children go to private school, their pension fund, the fact that they're happy they're not there.
Exactly.
And they kind of think you're stupid for being there a lot of times, I think. And when I was younger, I didn't believe that, but subsequent experience has taught me that the desk jockeys are very much that, and they don't give a damn about the people out in the field. And I don't blame soldiers, for whom I've seen a lot in these areas. I suppose you may have too, Guy, and I don't know about the other two of you, but you certainly know them. And they have a very remote experience to everyday life back in, TV land.
And there has, and bringing it full circle to today, of course, there's a huge controversy in Britain about soldiers from the 1970s being prosecuted for alleged misbehaviour.
It's just crazy, all this retro prosecution of anything.
And I think that's incredibly corrosive for the armed services. They're in the field with a very difficult job to do, and it's very easy for politicians to grandstand and get into all their sort of leftish, huggy-muggy, snowflake, modernist ideas, and actually these guys were having terrorist... Asymmetric warfare is very tricky.
Especially in the context of Northern Ireland, where a lot
people
of
are saying that is to right wrongs, but you cannot right things that are already done any more than you go back and change history.
Exactly.
You have to change the law as it works at the moment
Exactly.
to prevent such things now and in the future. That's fair. The other thing, I mean, that's as fair as you can be. But to go back and start to nitpick in these areas, you're tearing apart the very fiber of, in this case, defense, which is essential to freedom. Of
course.
Yeah. But anyway, let me throw this over to you, Guy, because we've all been talking a bit more than you, and because I could just say, election UK, who cares? At this point. No, because we were talking about Euroscepticism, and we need to talk about, because that's happened since our discussion. It doesn't have to be a totally, I mean, we can put it against a timeless background, as you like to do, so it'd be fine.
Well, right now, not in a quite timeless background, but we're 42 days from a general election. Right now, today, the House of Lords will rubber stamp a vote to go for a general election. Boris Johnson's tried 4 times to get a general election. Most recently on Monday, where he needed a 2/3 majority and failed. Ironically, yesterday in Parliament, there was a 2/3 majority to vote when they only needed a 50% majority using another method, an amendment to the existing law, to just have a straight majority. And this is what Boris Johnson's been calling for ages. That's the only way to cut through this Brexit fatigue, is to have a new Parliament.
Because people are bloody sick of it by now.
Yes.
Generally.
They
Everyone's pretty sick of it.
No
one less than Boris Johnson, probably.
I think so, yeah. and of course there's a lot of controversy because various people in Parliament who are scared of an election have been whinging that, it's in December when it's very dark, so we won't get a proper turnout. And then they had a really classic, and again, underlining how sad...
No one more than Boris Johnson,
sorry. Underlining how sad this current Parliament is. They were squabbling over whether it should be the 9th of December or the 12th of December. Yeah. And I saw one sketch artist saying, yes, of course, because it makes 3 minutes difference to the amount of light as to whether you have it on the 12th or the 9th. No, anyway, they've gone for it on the 12th.
Yeah, because everybody's nitpicking so much. Yeah. That's the point of that, joke.
But it's going to be very, very different from the election we had 2.5 years ago, because then Theresa May went into that election with a huge majority. Both major...
Has she come out of the coma?
I think she's still in a coma. Yeah.
Is she still in the coma?
I think she was in one for most of her career. Rather.
The Maybot
ever
is,
on to be the
extraordinary
leader of the country.
Yeah. But at that stage, both parties said we're going to implement the result of the referendum. So Brexit was not on the agenda this time because everyone's, become even more entrenched about Brexit. The election is about Brexit. This time you've got the Liberal Democrats. They've set out their stall saying we're going to ignore democracy now. We're going on a pitch to revoke Article 50, which is the mechanism for leaving, and cancel Brexit. That's our platform. And they've, because the country's divided, that's won them a lot of votes. Labour, the joke is they've got more positions on Brexit than the Kama Sutra. It's quite hard to work out what they're saying, but there's something along the lines of we're going to campaign for a better deal.
Which we will then
put to a referendum, and we will campaign to remain anyway. So their position is totally ridiculous. And this time the Conservatives have maintaining the position of we are going to deliver Brexit. Boris Johnson has confounded all the critics and come back with a deal, which passed Parliament by a majority of 30 votes last week for the first time. And so he's going to come back and say he's going to do that.
Which was basically almost the same deal as Theresa May did.
Actually not.
2 years ago.
No, it wasn't.
Putting Northern Ireland into almost regulatory alignment with the European Union and putting a basically customs border in the Irish Sea. And this was the red line that the majority of the Tory party was not interested in supporting when Theresa May brought this to the Parliament, simply because at the time they needed the DUP to support them. Currently, the Conservative Party does not have a majority in the House, and so, in my humble opinion, they don't necessarily need the DUP, which is why they've taken the flexibility to arrange this. There are obviously differences in the Irish protocol, which
I think the whole thing needs an ENEMA.
Hey, putting that aside, if you had to call it, what do you think's going to happen in this election?
I think the Tories will win with a small majority.
Not hung. Do you think they'll just pull it out?
The trouble with doing it this way around with the election is because you're putting people, you're then giving people, they are having to balance their views on Brexit against their natural inclinations and their views as to a particular party representing their representing or putting forward the policies to which appeal to them. So you have Labour Brexiteers will have to decide which is our greater loyalty to Brexit or to Labour, because many of them may not feel comfortable voting for Conservatives. And you'll have the same argument in the reverse case. The Liberals, of course, will go off and do something, a frolic of their own, as they always do. But they will probably pick up quite a lot of votes from Conservative areas where people wish to remain in the European Union, because they'll feel that voting for Corbyn is terrible. But voting for your local Liberal is actually not necessarily going to be the end
Where's
of the
Shirley
world.
Williams on all this? She's last time I checked, she's behind this revoke, isn't she?
Probably.
Yeah. She's very much in favour of UK being in Europe and changing it from within, or keeping a position of strength.
Which
there.
Probably is
What's
the
wrong
wisest.
with that guy?
Which guy?
Guy, not a guy. That's Philip.
Yeah, guy.
And that's you, and that's me.
Well, that would be
the guy.
That would be to kill democracy. There was a referendum which had a 1.3 million majority to say leave.
Majority to go. Yeah.
So in a way, this election is going to be another proxy for another referendum, in a sense. Although, as Nick has very well articulated, there is huge tribalism, and they're saying on the radio this morning, of course, this election's actually going to boil down to a very small amount of votes. I actually had a quick look. There was a very interesting article.
Meaning
in
for a Conservative majority?
Because of the first past the post system.
If the Conservatives get a majority, it's going to be squeaking by? Is that what you're suggesting?
There's a lot of very marginal seats. Okay. So if you look at the 20 most marginal seats for the Labour Party, where they beat the Conservatives in the last election,
right?
The smallest majority is on an absolute wafer-thin 25 votes or something like that.
That small.
That small, and you go
That's
from
incredible.
You go from the smallest to the 20th. This is the top 20 most marginal seats which Labour won. It goes from about those sort of 20, 30 votes up to about 2,500, 3,000 votes. So if you add up all of those votes on that, it's actually only about 60,000 votes. So only a 30,000 swing on those 20 seats. And then if you look at the other way round from Labour targeting Tory marginal seats, it's exactly the same.
How much swing?
So if you add up the top 20 targets for the Conservatives trying to snatch seats from Labour...
You're saying 30,000 votes for
30,000 seats for those 20.
Together.
And it's exactly the same, similar mass when you look at the top 20 marginals where the Conservatives are trying to hang on and the Labour will try and pinch. Again, it's about 60,000 votes in it for those top 20 seats. So you've got... So then, if you do both of them together, 30,000 votes total, so a 15,000 vote swing for the top 20 on both sides. So in other words, and again it was underlined in the radio this morning, there's about 30 to 40,000 target voters, which will make the difference between an overall majority or a hung parliament.
Very interesting point. I'm glad I asked the question because I think that really is fascinating.
And that's only 0.1% of the number of voters eligible.
Yeah.
So it's absolute wafer thin.
Philip?
You have 13 seats in Scotland, in the Lowlands and Aberdeenshire, which are in the hands of the Tories at the moment from the last election, which the SNP are gunning to replace. So I think at the moment the question is what's going to happen to the Northern Labour seats, traditional Labour strongholds, who currently voted for Brexit, and I think there might be a pact with the Brexit Party and Farage that will be able to take those seats from Labour and somehow come into an agreement with the Tories. I think they will do quite well in Wales. They might lose out in the big metropolises like London, where Labour seems to be growing in strength. So it's quite interesting to see how this will pan out. The good thing with what's been going on this past 3 years is the fact that the public has actually better understood issues relating to international trade, the European Union.
It's
been, I think, a very awakening experience
out of the whole experience, and
the majority of the population.
I'm glad that you said that because we don't remember that there are constructive things. Anytime something gets broken down, you have to put it back together, and you have to learn something from.
The best thing though about this election,
you will learn something,
which we really need, it's going to be a very good hosing down of the Orgian stables. We've had a speaker who is effectively
whose stables?
The Orgian stables.
Now, where is that located?
The Orgian stable. That was one of the tasks from
of
Greek mythology.
Is that Hercules?
Yes.
Guy,
Didn't you have to clean that
you used to have to remember Guy.
I love these.
Guy and Boris Johnson are our leading classicists.
I know, it's wonderful, isn't it?
It is. It's a marvellous thing to have had an education.
Orgian stables. I like that. Yeah,
yes.
That's nice.
It's a horrible task of clearing out all this manure.
So Guy basically wants to have clones of Guy to be elected to the House of Parliament that all vote exactly the same way.
We like
and
Guy.
all believe in Brexit and the unicorn of empire,
Clones of Guy,
which will occur.
It's a nice following title, or at least an article.
Unlike you, Philip,
entering WTO
I actually believe
regulations.
in a democracy and debating ideas, and rather than trying to make Britain into a sort of national assembly as a part of an EU empire. But anyway, moving on, the best thing is we are going to finally clear out people who have been obstructing democracy in Parliament. And the leader and figurehead of that has been John Bercow, the Speaker.
Are you going to impeach him?
He's supposed to be in a very... he's impeaching himself. He is stepping down as of tomorrow night, thank goodness. And he's also not standing in the next general election because the Speaker is also an MP. He's on a list. There's a very good list of everyone that's stepped down, divided up by groupings. So you have the Speaker, John Bercow, various current Conservative MPs,
who is an
Labour
odious
MPs.
fellow, isn't he?
My favourite grouping...
He's a very annoying guy.
The favourite grouping of political affiliation is former Tory, former Independent Group, former Change UK, former Independent UK, former Liberal Democrat, a lady called Heidi Allen, who's literally changed parties 4 or 5 times in the space of about 6 months.
She's now standing for the... but in late news, she's actually now standing for the Chameleon Party.
Yes. But the swamp...
She keeps changing her thing.
Obviously one of Trump's great chants in the last general election in the United States was, drain the swamp. Well, actually, the swamp is self-draining already because various MPs realise they don't stand a chance. They've been... and in a lot of these target seats... voted massively to leave, and yet the MP has been ignoring them.
It's fantastic.
And voting to block and obstruct Brexit.
The Tories will create a party in their own image currently, and then the reality of Brexit, once they come to the conclusion that they will not be able to agree a free trade agreement within the 14 months following this preliminary agreement on the withdrawal to secure the issue of the Good Friday Agreement in Northern Ireland, will become a reality to the public, and the Brexit negotiations will probably continue on with regards to Britain's free trade agreement with the European Union for probably another 6 to 7 years.
Yeah, we said last time trade is at the heart of
this. It will
this,
become quite
really
apparent that this is a mess. I think the most common figures at the moment that Brexit will probably shave approximately 3.5 to 4% of GDP for the UK economy, which is approximately £70 billion. So basically the economy of Wales.
There you go, you're wonking again.
Okay, let's just, let's go back a bit. You're raising so many interesting points. Point one, and why it's a major difference between Theresa May's deal and what Boris Johnson has on the table.
Are those facts?
At the moment, no, they're speculation, conjecture, hearsay.
Well, would you like to peach?
Scaremongering, absolutely.
Would you like to peach Philip
Let me gently peach Philip here.
Okay.
So first of all, Boris Johnson's New Deal stipulates that there is a new free trade agreement between Britain and the European Union agreed by the 30th of June 2020, i.e. in 7 months' time.
It's a political declaration. It will not be agreed.
Or leave anyway at the end of next year, i.e. a little over 13 months from today, with a WTO automatic.
And this is the fallacy.
Anyway, so that's point one.
This is the fallacy.
Another point. Hang on, that's point one.
Okay, I'll come back
Please
to
you.
Let me
wrap it up because we're running out of time, and I want to ask one short question before we have to go.
Obviously, this is a huge if, and no one can call this general election.
30 seconds.
If Boris Johnson wins with a solid majority, Philip keeps maintaining that Britain doesn't know how to negotiate a trade agreement because it hasn't had to do it for itself for many years. Well, actually, the most sensible thing to do would be to unilaterally have zero import barriers and let Britain face world competitive markets. Consumers benefit hugely automatically.
This is a complete
business
myth
productivity
and
will have to
15-second
sink
rebuttal.
or swim.
This is complete fallacy. The argument with the WTO of the Brexiteers is actually a bit of a myth because currently the European Union is at the WTO with the UK trying to decouple, and it happens that
the World Trade Organization,
all the big WTO members and the big trading blocs, be it from Japan, from India, China, the United States, Canada, in fact, as well, are all saying, hold on a second, we will not agree to the European Union trade agreements or agreements that are in place to be ceded directly to the United Kingdom because they want to negotiate them directly with the United Kingdom, which means another 7 to 8 years of individual negotiations between the British government.
You're talking across purposes a bit, but we'll have to leave it to the audience to determine.
Letting Chinese products in for free into the UK
right where we leave off.
means that you have nothing to give to the Chinese to let your products back into the to their individual markets.
Whole another subject.
So it's pointless.
Yes, I recently made a commercial for Hawaii. What's that thing called? A voiceover. Hawaii. What's it called? Hawaii.
Huawei.
Yeah, I sound like
You're in bed with the Chinese military.
Got a problem with my stroke or something. Anyway, here's the thing. We have to wrap it up, but I want to ask one last question, and we'll come back and we'll get the mud wrestling pool out for the next session because I can feel tension and the need to wrestle, not just mentally but physically, perhaps. And that is, did you hear about the representative in the Democratic representative in California who had to resign because she was caught in a bisexual throuple?
Bisexual throuple?
A throuple. I would call it a trio or a threesome. But apparently say throuple now. And nobody uses that word, but I just used it. And I hope it doesn't annoy anyone too much. But what do you think? Should she, do you know the story?
No.
Did you hear about it? Oh. I was going to ask if you thought she should, look it up. Her name's Katie Hill. And I think it's very unfair. The Telegraph came out with an article and said that it was very unfair. The New York Times, of course, thinks she should go because they're confused. But the Daily Telegraph, very good article, says you shouldn't, at this day and time, you shouldn't lose, if you're competent in your job and you're not bringing this out before the public, your private life, then why should you be judged on it, in a sense? And I think that's a good point. And
I would agree.
Interested to know what people out there think.
Second.
and put some comments under the video when you see it. That's all we got for right now. That was 40 minutes.
Really? It went very quickly.
Yes, I know.
We're
all bright-eyed and bushy-tailed at this time of the day, or perhaps it was the cognac that we sampled before. Philip didn't like that.
If only we had.
Philip prefers champagne on its own.
Much better.
Champagne cocktail.
It wasn't a dig. Champagne socialism. Right?
That's what I was thinking.
I saw your eyes, and I thought he was going to say it. Okay, that's all we got.
I was waiting for the
thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Good.
Thanks, Will.
Guy. See you later. See you in the hallways of and in the byways of the great metropolis over the next week. We'll see you again soon. There's Will. We are out. Thank you for watching.